Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. We are live again for another video, another tier list, another day we're doing another stream. Apologies for the lighting, my main room camera has died, so I'm looking a bit shiny. Hopefully all of you are doing well. Great to see you guys already in chat, Zeta and Thickouts. We're back for another live stream, and it's similar to the one that we did 2 days ago, another tier list video. But today, on the F1 races this year, I must stress not on the tracks themselves, but on the races this year, it'll be from S to D, as I'll show you in a few seconds, and rating them from amazing to just bad races. So let's get into it. I'll play the intro, and I'll see you guys right then. Alright then, this should be... Oh, let me get the correct thing on. There you go. This should be an interesting one because this year I would say easily has been one of the best seasons in recent memory. I would say this is the best year in F1 since 2012 pretty easily. And to be fair, last year we had some good races. 2019 as well, I'm not trying to say that F1's been terrible, but this season we've had so many really good races. I think it's easily the best in really recent memory. So I'm really excited to kind of rank these and kind of gauge all of them. Now, of course, there are a few at the bottom there in the NA category, which I can't rank because in the case of Canada or Japan, they've been cancelled, and some of the others like Mexico and Yas Marina, we'll see later on in the season. And guys, as always, as I'm doing these rankings, comment in chat your thoughts, and we'll kind of see where our over ranking is. So the first one is round 1 in Bahrain. Where would all of you rank Bahrain for this season? It was a really good run, and I think it sets up the year quite nicely with Hamilton and Max fighting for that win until the very, very end. And even though in the context of this year, that doesn't seem... Thank you very much for the sub, Harry Muir. If you're new, guys, please subscribe. But I think in the context of this season, round 1 kind of set up the Max Lewis battle. And even though we've had so many crazy races this year, to have a race go to the final lap in terms of the fight for P1, that's pretty rare. I think it was a really good race. Zeta in chat says A. I see what on poster says A. Chocolade said, and I agree. I think that this is the best year of the hybrid era. No questions asked. It's been pretty amazing. On Pas Chocolade also saying A, and I think it was a pretty good race. I think because of the context of this season, it's not an S, but it's definitely up there in the A tier or so. Okay, it's been great to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. If you are new, guys, please subscribe. I do live streams every single day. So if you have any ideas for future streams, then please let me know. But I think, as Zeta says, and Mega SV Prime votes, and Kai says, well, it's an A tier race. A really, really good race. We had Alonso, Seb, Sainz in the midfield fighting. I think it was a really fun race throughout. We had Yuki Tsunoda have his best race ever in F1. A fantastic race for him. Great overtaking. It was a fun lap 1 with Gasly, I think Ricciardo having a contact. So it was a pretty good race. Nidge's Gaming says B, Luke and Thick Out say A, and I think that A is fair. I think A is fair. Next up is Imola, which I think was the race where we found out that this year was going to be special. Because Imola, even though it's an iconic track, normally it's pretty stagnant, little overtaking, but we had an amazing race. Simply because of the rain. Now, of course, the weather factor is because of that. Of course, I think it was it Perez who took pole? I think it was Perez who took pole or who qualified second. But regardless, I think it was Perez who was on pole. Actually, or he was in second. I can't remember. You know, guys, I'll search up. Was it was Hamilton on pole? Because I'm pretty sure that Max qualified in third. I'll double check very quickly at Imola what happened there, because I don't want to get my facts wrong. Yes, it was Hamilton pole, Perez second. Okay, that makes sense. Angry says A, Robin A, 2, Joshua A, Vic A as well. Is great to see you, Vic. But there's a few here saying S. NJ Gaming Mateo also saying S. It was a pretty tough one. Thank you so much for the sub, Thomas Miranda. Thank you so much, Colega. It was a really good race, I think. The rain made it very exciting. But I think for me, even though it was a fun race, I think it was mainly unpredictable and tense rather than just exciting. Thank you for the sub, Francesco Proferta. But if you look at the race itself, Max took the lead, Hamilton was behind for most of it. And whilst there was great drama in some points, there was the Bottas-Russell crash, which was really, really big news, obviously at the time. Bottas been taken out, or at least colliding with Russell. We had the red flag, Hamilton coming back. But to put it in S tier, I think that has to be kind of interesting throughout. And I feel as though, as Angry Dano says in chat, it's kind of just... Oh, thank you for the follow, Abington, thank you so much. But I think in terms of on-track action, there wasn't that much really. I think at the beginning Gasly was going backwards because AlphaTauri for some reason put him out on wets. But at the same time, those kinds of Grand Prix, you can't expect racing every lap. I think it was either an A or A star. I think for now, put it in A for now, just because the fight for the lead that wasn't really there. It was just Max controlling the race, and there wasn't much overtaking. Though frankly, it was still an amazing race. And yes, they count 60 views. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This is nuts. If you're new, guys, please subscribe to the channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Jonathan said B. I think that's a bit harsh. Emily High Ground S. Butser S. So I think it's between A or S. At the end, I might change a few, but for now, I'm going to keep it in the A tier. Right, guys, in chat, let me know. Portimao, the track in the Algarve, Portugal, a track that I think we're not going to see next year, which is a shame because I think it's a fun track. But ironically, it was one of the worst races this year. I think when you think of Grand Prix like Sochi or even Imola, that don't have as much overtaking, even Hungary, they all produced amazing Grand Prix. Portimao, which was a pretty good race last year, at least by most people's standards, especially at the start, it was pretty meh this year. So I'm curious to see what all of you guys say. Mr. Straffy says Portugal, C-Max, Steve, KQ, Luke, Vic, Jonathan, thank you so much for being involved, guys. Adrod says D, Robin C, Chocolade C. You know what I'll say about Portimao in its defense? As Ninja's Gaming points out, there was some strategy involved there. There was a fight for the lead between Bottas, Max, and Lewis, but mainly, of course, Max and Lewis. We saw Hamilton overtaking Max on track and Bottas too. I think it was an okay race. Of course, on that one, there was the Kimi Giovinazzi crash where Kimi, by accident, just kind of drove into Giovinazzi quite hilariously. And then you had Ricciardo fighting back, but mainly Alonso fighting back and kind of having his best strong race. But Firas says, Portugal, I fell asleep. I wouldn't say it was that bad, but I do think it was a pretty average race. Nothing too spectacular, so I'm going to say C. It was a decent race, some drama here or there, a few overtakes with Alonso and Ricciardo. And there was some changes at the front, but given the context of this year, it was a pretty meh race, as Robin says in chat. An okay race, some overtakes at the top, but no real consistent battles throughout. I'm going to say it was a C. Okay race, but not amazing. Next up, guys, España. I'm curious to see how you guys rank this. I'm curious to see because I think it was a bit different to Portimao. I think it was a pretty good race. Granted, the overtaking wasn't there. We had Leclerc and P3 for a big part of the start of the race. You had Hamilton and Verstappen lap 1 going at it with Max kind of forcing Lewis off. You had Hamilton beating Max due to great strategy. It wasn't an amazing race, and I think as NJ says, mainly strategy there. That's at least favourite. I mean, to be fair, I think that if Spain was the least favourite, I think that shows that we've had a pretty good year so far. I would agree. Vic Jaloui also saying C. Matthew and Mega VS. Great to all of you in chat. You're also saying C. KQB. I don't know. I think apart from the fight for the lead, there wasn't much going on. Ricciardo and Perez, there was an overtake there, I think. But really, very, very little overtaking. Stroll had some good battles with Alonso early on, and Gasly almost passed Ocon on the line at the very, very end because Ocon's tyres were dying on the one-stop strategy. Okay, Niels, I'll call you that. But yeah, I would say it was decent. I would say it was C or B. NJ, Spain equals Portugal. I think, yeah, they're both pretty similar. Luke says C behind Portimao, and I agree. I think Spain was better than Portimao. I'd consider putting it in B personally, because even though it wasn't a great race in terms of action throughout, the fight for the lead was, I think, more intense than in Portimao. At Portimao, it was kind of clear that Merc were going to win it, I think, after the start of the race. But Portimao was a lot more, I would say, in suspense. So, I'm not sure. Comment saying that people are biased against Lewis, that's fair enough. Coming saying B. You know, guys, I'm going to put it in C, but it's a strong C. It's like a C+. Better than Portimao, but I think not good enough to be a B tier race, just because there wasn't enough action throughout. Next up, Monaco. And I'm curious to see... Sounds great. Thank you so much. That honestly means a lot to me. Thank you. But Monaco, I'm curious to see where you guys rank this, because it's a very, I would say, polarizing event in general. Some love it, some hate it. I think that should be on the calendar. It's an iconic race. And even though on paper overtaking isn't great, this year, 2019, 2018, 2016, tends to produce some great racing. So I'm in favour of Monaco as a whole, and I'm curious to see where you guys rank it. I think it was a pretty good race. Granted, there wasn't too much overtaking, but you had the Bottas disaster, which made it dramatic. Qualifying also was very dramatic in terms of Leclerc crashing out. So if you're doing the whole weekend, I think it was a pretty fun weekend overall. I think I'm gonna say yes that we consider qualifying here, just because qualifying impacted the race with Leclerc's crash. You can also, I think, bring that into the account. But I think it wasn't the best of Monaco. It wasn't a bad race, to be honest. It wasn't a bad race. Thank you so much for the sub, Robert Free. Thank you so much, mate. I think it was a bad race. I think there was strategy there. Lewis fighting with Gasly and unable to make the undercut work. Perez making up places. And then you also had Vettel with a very good P5. It was an okay race, but in hindsight, and I think this is a good way of measuring how good the race was. Would I rather watch Spain back or Monaco? I'd probably watch Spain back instead. It was a good qualifying, but I think it was pretty meh. There was some good moments of strategy, but it was again there was very little overtaking, and Max was kind of in control. He was gapping Sainz for most of the race. So a decent race. I'm gonna put it in C. I'm gonna put it in C. Oh, my computer. It's okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. My thing just froze. Apologies, guys. My screen just froze, and I can't find Monaco anymore on my options. Have I put Monaco anywhere? Oh, okay, there it is. Okay, it's in C. It's in C. Not an amazing race, not a terrible race, and of course, comments. We had the Stroll meme, but I think that kind of sums it up. The Stroll thing became a meme because there was like one incident and it wasn't shown. So I'm gonna say C. I'm gonna say C. Oh, Sochi, I put it at the end. Okay, guys, the issue is I had all of them in order, but because of my screen freezing, they're kind of all jumbled up. I think we had what? I think I'll put it like this. That's somewhat in order because this is all jumbled now. This is kind of annoying. Anyway, Paul Ricard, guys in chat, let me know what you think about Paul Ricard, because ironically, again, a track that on paper people weren't happy about. A track that it's Baku first. It's Baku first. I think we all know where Baku lies in this list. In chat, go ahead. Where do you rank Baku? I think it's pretty clear where we all are going to rank it. A track that has really always been pretty good for racing. 17 was an amazing race with Stroll passing Bottas, with Bottas passing Stroll on the line. 2018, the Vettel lockup, safety car restart. Some saying S, so Luke says S. Thickount saying A, so does Anody Fall. ABDC A. Matthew saying S. Morgan saying B. Angry Dino giving Paul Ricard an S. I'm gonna know Baku an A or B. Interesting. Joshua, I think that's a good point there. I think overall it was a very fun race. The majority of the action was at the end, but frankly, even then you had a very crazy start. Not crazy start, but a fun start. You had Seb making up places. You had Leclerc defending at the front. And look, even though it wasn't crazy throughout, you can't ask for everything. You know, you're going to have racing every lap all the time. And it was a fantastic finale, of course, with the Verstappen blowout, Hamilton's mistake, Perez winning, Seb Gasly podium, and of course the Leclerc Gasly fight at the end. Alonso's amazing race. I think it was a pretty good race. I'm going to put it in the A tier. It wasn't by any means an amazing race throughout, but at least in the start to the race. And I think that even without the kind of puncture at the end, we still would have seen Seb and other cars kind of get involved there. You had the Stroll puncture. I think it was a pretty good race overall. A fantastic end and a very unique podium. So I would say it's an A. You could say that's a high B, and at the end I might kind of move them around a bit, so that like it's not all A, all C. But I think that Baku was a pretty solid A race. Right, guys, now thank you so much for interactions. Luke says best race of the season, Baku. I wouldn't say quite that high, but I think it was still pretty good. Pablo Claudio, great to see you in chat, mate. He says A as well. Okay. Right, guys, in chat, Paul Ricard. Another race that people said would be terrible, and it wasn't. And I think, look, this year has proven to me that ultimately what matters most is the cars themselves. What doesn't really matter is the track. Even the tracks are important. Racing will be amazing, or at least exciting, if there's close racing. That is the key. So pretty much every race this year has been somewhat interesting because of the on-track competition between drivers. Thank you so much for the sub, Pablo. Muchas gracias, colega. So for France, let me see. A lot of A's. Ambudan is saying S. Javier C. Robin A. Chocolade saying B. Accounts A, low A. Um, I think it's pretty clearly, to me at least, it's a decent race. It had a good start with Max passing Lewis. I would say with Lewis making a mistake. There was strategy throughout the race, with Hamilton and and Verstappen, of course. And then in the midfield, you had the Ferraris plummet, Alonso, Gasly, Ricciardo all battling hard. It was a really good race. I think even though on paper it kind of didn't have the kind of standout big incident or the standout big moment. There was a fight for the lead throughout with Hamilton and Verstappen. Strategy, Perez passing Bottas. I think it was a good race, but I think was it more dramatic than the others? Probably not. I think there was sustained interest throughout. It's not an S tier race. I think it's between A and B. It's difficult to say. I'm tempted to say B just because. Actually, it's hard because even though it's really tough. I'm torn, guys. I'm torn. I'm torn. It's at least a B. I'm gonna say B just because it wasn't a terrible race. It was a very good race, but it didn't have that kind of killer moment. It was mainly strategy more than anything. There was some overtakes early on, but I think it was a pretty good race, but not an amazing one. Pretty good race, but not an amazing one. Now we had two Grand Prix at Austria, and on this I've only got one option, so I can't really do them both. So guys, just like for overall Austria overall, what would you guys place both races? Because to me they were pretty average, ironically, in my opinion. I would say that the Austria races were pretty average. Um, yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of the race in Austria. There wasn't much. I mean, there were a few moments here and there at Austria in both races, but ultimately Max dominated, so there was no fight for the win. To be honest, there was some fun instance with I think Leclerc fighting up the field, and then of course with the Perez incidents, and then of course the Russell Alonso fight. But to me, overall, it's pretty average. Comments saying D. Wow. Carmine also saying D. Joshua B or C. Angry Dino C. Javier C. I mean, it's hard to compare. If we're doing the race and qualifying, I think that qualifying was very fun at Austria, and I think I think it's interesting because there were penalties, there was some controversy there. I don't know. It's a tough one to gauge. It's a tough one to gauge. I think across both races they were okay. With of course Norris at the front, but I mean I've put France at B, and I can't put France at B and then also have Austria there. I'm gonna put it as a C. Of course, they're both races, but I think on average they were okay. Not amazing, not terrible, but just okay races. Um, there was some good moments, but Max dominated. There weren't that many overtakes. Ironically, they were kind of more DRS trains, so I would say C. Luke agrees with me, so does NG. Killian says D, a bit harsh, but there you go. Um, Robin, there were only two races in Austria, so I'm kind of confused there. Um, yeah, I would say C. I would say C overall. I think that's right. Silverstone, which might divide opinion because of certain incident that happened at the start of the race. Some of you may have seen it at some point this year. It was quite controversial. Verstappen and Hamilton, you might have heard of them, may have had a small entanglement, a small incident. Perhaps that will change the perception that some people have of it. But overall, I think it was a very good race. Of course, that incident alone, even if you're a Max fan or a Lewis fan, regardless, it was dramatic. And those kinds of things define championships. We'll look back on that and say, wow, that was an incredible, a symbolic event. But just ignoring lap one, a fantastic fight for the win. Charles Leclerc in the third or fourth best car led for 50 laps against Lewis Hamilton. And it was very close because you're asking, okay, will Hamilton overtake him? Will he not? Will Leclerc win? It was, I think, a very, very tight race. I think it also had a very... I also think that a fight for the win makes it a lot more interesting. And this one has divided you guys. Molly, great to see you again. She's saying C. Robin S. Sorry, not C. Molly says S, as does Robin. NJ says A or S. Ardit saying B. Mara C. Angry B to C. Luke B. Joshua A. I think the sprint race in Britain wasn't amazing. It was okay, but it wasn't anything special. Alonso's kind of 6 places on that point were the only really memorable thing, and of course the Perez spin. In the actual race, you had the Leclerc battle. You had Sainz kind of fighting Ricciardo. Alonso overtaking Stroll after a poor pit stop. Gasly's puncture. Kimi getting into the points before his contact with Perez. So a pretty good race overall, I would say. I wouldn't say it was an S tier race. I would say another A. A really, really good race overall. I think that it was it was a slow burner because in the mid phase it was always tight between Leclerc and Hamilton. But in the midfield there wasn't much battling. It was kind of, Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz keeping up their places. So I would say it's pretty good. At the end, I'm going to have to change a few of these, but for now I'm going to put Silverstone in A. Hungary, guys, now in chat. I'm curious to see all of you. Where would you put Hungary? Because this was I think the most shock result. Ocon winning a race in the Alpine, shocking. A ridiculous lap 1. Both Williams in the points, which now seems kind of normal, but at the time that was insane. Verstappen compromised. Perez out. Norris out. Alonso's ridiculous defense of Hamilton for so long. Sainz podium. Comment saying S. Ols saying A. Vic Zeta also A. Chocolade S. Jonathan said Paul Ricard was an S. I don't know. I think... You know what? I think to me, Hungary has to be an S. Even though there wasn't much overtaking, the fact that you had such a crazy lap 1, the fact that you had Hamilton on his own on the grid on the restart, the fact that you had Alonso defending from Hamilton for 10 laps, Ocon defending on Vettel for so long, Alpine's first win, the Williams guy scoring points, it was a crazy race. I think overall, yes, it was mainly, kind of lap 1 that defined the race. But it was still a crazy result. And even after the race, you had the Vettel kind of DNF controversy with the fuel shortage. So I think it has to be an S tier race. I don't want to be too harsh here and give none of them an S tier. I think that there's at least one more S in here. That's a pretty mega race, I must say. A pretty outstanding race. Sanoxa, I think the result was more dramatic than the race. But it was still a pretty crazy race in my opinion. Pretty crazy race. And of course, guys, as always, we're gonna disagree. I'm a human being and you're a human being. We aren't gonna be the same. We're gonna disagree. That's fine. It's about respectfully disagreeing and just kind of showing opinion. Oh yes, and actually, there you go. I think Spa is an NA because it wasn't really a race. Qualifying would have been A tier, to be honest, for Spa. But because there was an actual race, Spa has to be at the bottom because there was no actual race. It was a race technically, but it was 6 laps behind a safety car. That's not racing. I think actually I'm just going to put a Spa... I'm going to give Spa a tier on its own. I'm going to give Spa a tier on its own. I think Spa goes right there. And I think that's a pretty good... description of Spa for fans. 4 hours watching the rain. To be fair, Twitter made that race amazing. I was tweeting all race. It was fun in that regard. But apart from that, it was pretty dry. So Spa goes in the depression tier. Monza, easy S tier. Easy S tier. Again, it was a race that was defined by so many things. Lap 1. Hamilton and Max going wheel to wheel again. Ricciardo jumping Max off the start. McLaren 1-2 from all over the race, really, and then at the end, strategy. Verstappen slow pit stop. And then you had the obvious contact with Lewis and Max. Again, very dramatic, very controversial, both on and off track. You had Ricciardo defending from Lando. You had Bottas from last to 3rd place. Perez's penalty. Ocon and Vettel colliding with Ocon squeezing out Seb. On lap 1, again, Seb being pushed off by Stroll. A pretty good race. I think that when you see a new team at the front, it's always very exciting. It was phenomenal to see Ricciardo at the front for so long against Verstappen. The Hamilton-Max drama made it even more exciting to watch. So yeah. I think that it's an S tier. Molly, Mira, Vic, all saying S. Matt Swan, also saying S. Joshua. I think that's a pretty easy S. A pretty easy S. Without doubt. The Star Wars Cup is back. Zandvoort, guys, is here at the bottom, guys. So, you can't see it because I've put in an extra depression tier, but I've got Zandvoort here at the bottom. So, guys, Zandvoort, what are your thoughts on that? By the way, there's 50 of you still watching. Thank you so much. You're honestly all amazing. It makes it so much better, for me when you're all here. And yeah, if you need to subscribe, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow as well for my stream then. I'm getting mixed reviews here, but kind of in a similar ballpark for Zandvoort. Chocolade, Ollie saying C, that guy Waldo B or C, Angry Vic Zeta C, NJ B. Yes, Robin, the boss has his water in his Star Wars cup. Matt saying B. It's interesting. The fight for the lead wasn't really a fight because Max was in control. Actually, to be fair, actually, now that I think of it, there was a fight for the win throughout in terms of not on track, but Max was very, very close to. Sorry, Hamilton was close-ish to Max at the first stint. So even though Max was in control, it was still a kind of a fight. You had Perez getting his way up the grid. You had an amazing that point with Alonso's ridiculous overtakes on several cars. You also had the Perez-Alonso Sainz battle at the end, where Alonso passed Sainz. To be honest, guys, I'm after just a few of these. I think it might be a C again. For me, it's a C or a B, Zandvoort. It's a C or a B. It wasn't a bad race, but there wasn't much overtaking. Stroll was stuck behind, I think, Russell pretty much all race. The fight for the lead was okay, but wasn't amazing. Gasly, Leclerc didn't really have any battles. Alonso had a good race, but not many battles there either. You had Ocon calling Alonso very slow. That was quite funny, if not a bit silly. I would say C. I'm putting it C because I've got France in B, and I can't have France in B and Zandvoort in C. So to be fair, I think that I'm after just a few of these because it's just hard to pick. But anyway, Zandvoort in C, and of course, guys, we've got one left. We've got one left, and that is Sochi. I think we all know what we're going to put for Sochi. In 3, 2, 1, I want to see all of you put one letter for Sochi. One letter. In 3, 2, 1, I want to see the obvious, most, the biggest no-brainer that you ever do for a track rating. And it's Sochi, and I'm seeing Zeta giving it an S, and hopefully I'll see the rest of you following suit. Because Sochi is the easiest, obvious S I think you'll see in your entire life. Because it wasn't just a race. First of all, qualifying was ridiculous. A front three of Norris, Sainz, Russell. And then on that point, here's the crazy thing, guys, about Sochi. For the first 20 or 15 laps, you had Russell in 3rd, Stroll in 4th. And you probably forgot about that. We had Stroll 4th, Russell 3rd for basically the entire first part of the race. Or 4th or 5th. Whatever it was. Ridiculous. Sainz, Norris at the start fighting for the win. Norris passing Sainz, of course. You had Hamilton at the end with this strategic masterclass on the slicks. You had Verstappen passing Bottas in like 2 laps and then fighting up the field. You had Leclerc with a ridiculous first stint. To go so long and to really, be in contention for a top 6, top 7 finish. Alonso on a wet track on dry tyres was passing Perez and Leclerc. They didn't show on stream, but he was at one point 3rd. So on stream, I'm sorry. I mean on the live broadcast. Amazing race from Alonso. Alonso, of course, ignored turn 1. That was a pretty iconic moment. Seb and Stroll again crashing. Stroll again crashing into what's his name? Gasly. So Stroll kind of all over the place. I mean, Sochi's easily, in my view, the best Grand Prix of the year. A fight for the win to the end. Strategic masterclass. I mean, it was just amazing. NJ, mate, I respect your opinion, but Sochi isn't the 5th best race this year. France wasn't better. What? How is NJ, mate? How is Sochi your 5th ranked race of the year? There's no way. Sochi was like Imola, but there was on-track action throughout, even in the dry, and they had a more dramatic ending. And it was a fight for the win. And it was a crazy qualifying. As always, I respect your opinion, but Sochi was for sure better than Imola. Angry, I've mentioned Alonso like once, to be honest. I've mentioned him like once, so I don't know what you want me to do. But I think we're done there, yeah. Infinity, I mean, we've done all of the Grand Prix this year, so I don't know. NJ, mate, I presume that you're trolling, because Sochi was pretty mad throughout. But anyway, these are all the tracks for this year, guys. Should I make a few changes? I feel as there has to be somebody in the D category. Just compared to the rest, I'm going to put Monaco in D. It wasn't that bad a race, but compared to those, it was pretty meh, I'll be honest. It was pretty meh. Portugal, I think is on its own. I think that it's more or less there. It wasn't again dramatic, but it was a very good race. Thank you very much, Heisenberg. Thank you very much. Infinity, thank you as well. Sansa, it didn't, but it was dramatic. You had crashes, red flags. It was a pretty dramatic Grand Prix. Did I add it? I don't think I mentioned him that much. Maybe I spoke about him too much without realizing. Joshua, yeah, I think I'll do this again at the end of the year. Not after Turkey because it'll be just one different, but I think I'll do it at the very end. At the very, very end, I'll do it. When we've had, of course, Japan, America, Interlagos, Yas Marina, and Qatar as well. Qatar's going to be interesting. I'm not too sure what we're going to think of Qatar. Actually, guys, I'll just switch scenes here. I'm not too sure what Qatar's going to bring, to be honest. I think it could be an okay race because of how good the grid is. But the track, it's a very tight middle sector. I'm not too sure how that's going to be. Guys, thank you so much for watching so far. I'm not going to end the stream. I'm not ending the stream. I'm going to chill here with you guys. So if you want to stay, then stay, and I'll just, kind of respond to your comments and just interact with you. If you want to go, that's fine. That's the tier list done. But if you want to just chill here with me, then I'll stay and I'll talk to you guys. So yeah, and Las Obras, I agree. I really enjoy watching kind of the gaps and competition between drivers and strategy. And France was really, really good. I'll admit, I think it was good. I just put it in B because I think by the end it was clear enough that Max was going to win. It was close, but it seemed inevitable. I think actually that's a lie. It was close to the end. That's a lie. It's tough, but I think that overall that was a fair enough ranking for France. But it was really close. It was really close. Coys, yeah, I mean, I think that Monaco was D tier. I mean, I think just because of the Leclerc drama and of course the Bottas pit stop, there were some kind of notable points, but overall was pretty, yeah, I'd agree, it was a pretty meh race. I mean, to be fair, Monaco is Monaco, and I think that it does, to be fair, 2019 was really good with Max versus Lewis, 2018 Ricciardo versus Hamilton, 2016 in the wet with the Paris podium. It's had some great races. But yeah, I think that overall it wasn't as good as, say, the others on the list. So I would say that D is fair. D was fair. Infinity, I would like to see Sepang back. It won't happen, but I'd love to see it back on the calendar for sure. I would love it personally. That guy, I think so as well. I think that because of how close the field is, any race will be interesting. But Qatar, I don't think it's going to have much overtaking. There's a long straight, but would the middle sector be a bit iffy? Las obras, es que es un poco difícil, pero bueno. Lo puedo hacer, pero me cuesta un poco. Pero intentaré hacerlo mejor en el futuro. Comment, the first race, I'll get confused. Was the first race the one where you had the Leclerc-Gasly incident? Actually, the thing is, I honestly get the two models confused. You had the Russell-Alonso battle. You had Verstappen dominating. I don't recall what happened in the first race there. To me, it was a pretty decent race. The midfield was close, but it didn't really have those kind of big moments. It's Nika. I mean, Imola was good, but to me, Sochi was better because Imola, even though it was dramatic, Verstappen was in control really after the Hamilton crash. There weren't that many overtakes at Imola, and the field was kind of constant. But with Sochi, you had a crazy field throw. You had Russell in P3 for a long period of time. You had Sainz and Norris at the front. A dramatic end, but even before that, you had the Verstappen's Perez battle in the midfield with Leclerc and Alonso and Stroll and Ricciardo. So to me, Sochi was a pretty amazing race overall. Pretty amazing race. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Sepang at that night would be amazing. It would be amazing. Yeah, but NJ, that's what I'm saying. After the Hamilton crash, for the rest of the race, Max was in control. So that's my point, really. I mean, Hamilton was gaining, but once Hamilton crashed, that was it, race over. I'm not sure if I'm letting an argument develop in the chat. I think that I want to end it there because otherwise there'll be arguments about the races. Thank you so much for watching. I will live again tomorrow, so if you're new, please subscribe and hit the bell so that when I do go live, you're all notified. I'll do a video tomorrow, so guys in chat, just comment any ideas that you have for the future. Go to don't comment on the live chat, but go on the actual video comments if you have any ideas for a video tomorrow. But I'm sure that I'll think of one regardless. Thank you so much, Rams. It's been a great year for sure. Very close. Hopefully, it continues to the very end. Look after yourselves. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, Kois, and see you all later. Ciao.